Well, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. I hope everyone is healthy and well today on this beautiful day. Now, this title threw me off. This was not highly recommended in any sort of way. I was scrolling through YouTube and I happened to see this video. Now, this is crazy. I looked at it and went, Today, we'll be reacting to Keep These Stupid American Trucks Out of Europe. Let's jump right into this video. Apparently, this video is revolved around how these massive vehicles, these massive trucks to be exact, in the United States are like safety hazards, man. Let's jump right into it. Original video link will be down below in the description.
American SUVs and
Whoa.
American SUVs and pickup trucks are dangerous, and there is irrefutable evidence of this. Their extreme weight and stiff frames makes them dangerous to other vehicles in a crash, which has turned road safety into an arms race that favors those who can afford the biggest and heaviest vehicle. And their blunt vertical front ends designed entirely for aesthetics are more dangerous to pedestrians. When a person is hit by a car, they're likely to land on the hood, which would not be particularly enjoyable. But a person hit by one of these trucks is much more likely to be knocked back and impact the ground or be run over by the truck.
Oh my gosh.
Which is why research has found that people are 44% more likely.
I didn't think it made that much of a difference for real. Because what if you do go flying? If a truck how he just explained hits you. There's real studies of this? With real people? Or they talk about a factory or something? That
likely
is
to die when hit by an SUV or light truck than they are if hit by a car.
Whoa.
44% more likely to die when hit by an SUV or light truck than they are if hit by a car.
Okay, 44% higher. Well, of course, it's a truck. Massive truck. Yeah, of course. SUVs and up, it's over. Cooked.
For children, that number was found to be 82% higher. And for children under 10, it's 130%.
Oh.
And pickup trucks are even worse. This 2023 Belgian study found that a pedestrian or cyclist hit by a pickup truck had an almost 200% higher risk of fatal injury than if hit by a car.
What?
What's worse is that light trucks are also more likely to crash in the first place. Due to their heavy weight and high center of gravity, SUVs have worse handling than a typical car, and they have longer braking distances too.
Boy, that's for any SUV and up. You get the SUVs and trucks, the braking distance. I mean, everybody should practice braking distance, though. You're taught that in driver school.
Center of gravity also, and they have longer braking distances too. And their high center of gravity also means that they are much more likely to roll over, even at low speeds.
What?
Rollover deaths in light trucks were a major problem in the early 2000s, and in response, automobile manufacturers started making their vehicles stronger to avoid crushing the occupants in case of a rollover. A major side effect of this, however, is that the pillars of the vehicle, such as this A-pillar, have become much larger, which reduces visibility. And visibility was already terrible on these trucks because, due to their high height and excessively large hoods, they have insanely huge front blind spots. This NBC News investigation showed that 9 children can sit in front of a typical American SUV and be completely invisible to the driver.
Whoa!
Which is why there's been a...
What? I know you lying. I know you lying. I know you lying. I'm thinking, man, you in an SUV, you should see everything. That's what I'm thinking. Strac don't drive SUVs, but if I do get me lit something, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to see the road.
Can SUV and be completely invisible to the driver.
Are you kidding me? That's not the same.
Can sit in front of a typical American
That's the same road?
This NBC News investigation showed that 9 children can sit in front of a typical American SUV and be completely invisible to...
Wait a minute. Hold on. Whose hair are we seeing? Who is that in the
front?
front?
Showed that 9 children can sit in front of a typical American SUV and be completely...
It gotta be the one with the brown hair, bro, because she's a little tall. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm thinking you can see everything. What's the point of having it if you can't see nothing? What? I'm literally thinking if you're in a truck, you can see more, bro. How does that make sense?
This investigation showed that 9 children can sit in front of a typical American SUV and be completely invisible to the driver. which is why there's been a steep increase in what are known as front-over and back-over accidents. Someone hit or run over by a truck moving at slow speeds simply because the driver could not see them. And it's often a parent running over their own child in their driveway.
What? You learn something new every day. You parents, bro, you wouldn't take your kid with you? You ain't forget, like, how you run over your kid? This happens more than often, like.
And it's often a parent running over their own child in their driveway. Understand?
Happens more than often. Are you kidding me, bro? Y'all really running over y'all kids and stuff in the driveway?
Understandably, these kind of vehicles can't pass EU safety regulations, which is why they're illegal in Europe, and thankfully, they can't be sold here. Or at least, they're not supposed to be. Due to a regulation loophole, thousands of these dangerous American trucks are being imported into the European Union each year, bypassing safety and emissions standards and making our roads less safe. And even as road safety advocates and city councils across Europe are trying to get the EU to plug these loopholes,
nobody should be driving that fast, that Ram like that, bro. That's ridiculous.
Recent trade talks with the US threaten to nullify vehicle safety regulations completely, which would open the floodgates to these stupid American trucks in Europe.
That was just the intro to the video.
In October, 75 European organizations, including the City of Amsterdam, where I live, signed a joint letter to the EU Parliament entitled, "The intention to accept lower US vehicle standards risks increasing deaths and pollution on EU roads."
Facts.
Their concern is justified. In the EU, road deaths have decreased by 36% since 2010. But in the US, road deaths have increased by 30% during the same time period. What's worse is that pedestrian deaths in the US have increased by 80% since 2010, and they are now at the highest level they've been since the 1980s. Meanwhile, EU pedestrian deaths have dropped 37% since 2010. There are several cities in the EU that have achieved huge reductions in vehicle fatalities. For example, Helsinki, which had...
Wait, is that mainly because people tend to use public transportation a little bit more, in countries like the UK, or strictly because of the fact of how the vehicles are, and how people drive?
Dropped 37% since 2010. There are several cities in the EU that have achieved huge reductions in vehicle fatalities. For example, Helsinki, which had 0 road deaths over the past 12 months. They achieved this through many of the things I talk about on this channel, such as safer street design, more automated enforcement systems, and most importantly, lower speed limits. Which is why many municipalities, including Amsterdam, have implemented a city-wide default speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour. But even outside of these progressive cities, there has also been a general steady reduction in road deaths across the entire EU over the past 15 years. And the main contributor to that is improved safety regulations for motor vehicles. This letter to the EU Parliament comes in a response to the recent trade talks underway between the United States and the European Union. As part of a joint statement published in August, the EU said that,
"With respect to automobiles, the United States and the European Union intend to accept and provide mutual recognition to each other's standards."
Okay.
Mutual recognition is a fundamental principle of EU policy. It is how a product certified in one jurisdiction can be sold in all other jurisdictions throughout the EU, and it's a necessary component of the EU common market. For example, the Good Manufacturing Practice, or GMP legislation, means that a drug manufacturer in the US only needs to be inspected by the US Food and Drug Administration, and then that drug can be sold in the EU without recertification. This makes sense as it's an effective way to streamline regulations, and it works very well, provided that all jurisdictions involved have a similar certification process for the product that is being mutually recognized. But that is not the case for motor vehicles. EU safety standards for automobiles are significantly higher than they are in the US, both in terms of what is tested, but also who does the testing. US automotive safety testing focuses primarily on occupant safety in typical crash scenarios. One of the only tests that is more strict in the US than in Europe is rollover safety tests, due to the entirely manufactured problem of excessive rollover crashes as American manufacturers started promoting light trucks in the 90s. But if these stupid American trucks weren't so top-heavy and regular-heavy in the first place, these tests wouldn't be so important, and engineering resources could go into other safety features.
How can you really make a truck light? I feel like, they get to add in all these extra things on the vehicle. They give it more of a stocky truck look, a big hefty feeling when driving it. Like, what's the point? It's already a truck. It's a purpose for it. Why are you styling up the truck, making it look like something? I mean, I understand, but like, it gets to a point. It gets to a point, We rolling around like it's military trucks or something. I seen the truck the other day, and he had it spaced out still. He had it sitting up like a monster truck. Mind you, it's already a truck. And I'm like, you driving in both lanes. I gotta go on the shoulder. I gotta go to the bike lane because you driving in both lanes. I can't even beat my horn at you because I obviously can see that you can't fit in both lanes. These people, I don't know how you ain't get no ticket. I don't know. Really blew my mind. I'm sitting there driving like, this dude seriously he can't fit in one lane. He literally has to take a quarter of the next lane. And it's so selfish. And I can smell it. And it's literally black gas, black fumes coming out of the back of his exhaust. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, every time you step on the gas, black smoke. Every time you step, black smoke.
These tests wouldn't be so important, and engineering resources could go into other safety features.
That's why they be heavy, bro.
As a result of these testing differences, EU cars are safer than US cars. A 2015 report found that a typical EU car on US roads would have about a 33% lower risk of serious injury than a typical US model. And this doesn't take into account recent safety improvements in Euro NCAP safety standards. Most notably in 2020 when they introduced the Mobile Progressive Deformable Barrier Test for front-end crashes. It took me a couple of takes to get that test name right, but basically, instead of crashing a car against a solid wall, this test uses a crash between the vehicle and a moving trolley to replicate the other car involved in the crash. An important aspect of this test is how the vehicle manages to share the crash energy. In short, if a vehicle is found to be more dangerous to other vehicles, it will lose points off of its safety rating, which makes sense. Vehicles shouldn't be able to pass safety tests by making the roads more dangerous for everyone else.
Facts.
This is a very common theme when comparing EU to US vehicle safety tests. US testing is myopically focused on the vehicle and its occupants, while Europe tests not just the vehicle, but also how it interacts with other road users.
Yup.
Which is why the Euro NCAP safety rating has 4 categories.
One of them being the US, they so focused on protecting the people on the inside of the vehicle, you're not worried about the people on the outside at all. I mean, have you no sympathy? Bro, that's crazy. I mean, you only think about saving the people on the inside, saving their life and everything. And what if they the drunk driver? You telling me that the person on the outside that finna get smacked up, turned to applesauce, they not gonna live and survive life? Because of how the vehicle was constructed, how it was built from the outside? Because if it didn't have certain components, certain parts put on it, little extras, extra details that make it look all bulky and everything, that person could have been alive, Yo, shout out to Europe, because y'all really thinking for everyone, you want to save everyone. That's crazy, like, when you really point that out.
Which is why the Euro NCAP safety rating has 4 categories, one of them being focused entirely on vulnerable road users.
Yup.
Part of this testing involves pedestrian impacts, and vehicles are scored on how they impact different parts of a person's body. These kind of tests have been around for a long time, which is why it's common for cars in Europe to have hoods with explosive bolts that pop up on impact, or even pedestrian airbags to protect people hit by cars. Notice how on these Tesla cars the hood has popped up before the dummy head hits the car. They don't do this on their American models because nobody is making them do it. The NHTSA has a proposal for future pedestrian safety tests, but today vehicles sold in the US are not required to pass any kind of pedestrian safety tests at all. which is why their vehicles have been allowed to become so ridiculously dangerous to anybody outside of a car. But all of that aside, even if a crash test in the US is reasonably equivalent to a test in the EU, there's still a massive fundamental difference.
I ain't never seen the airbags come down from the side before.
In the EU, automobile manufacturers are required to pass a type approval process by independent public authorities to certify a specific vehicle model before it can be released to market. While in the US, all crashworthiness and compliance tests are self-certified by the car manufacturer. The NHTSA does some spot checks, but the vast majority of motor vehicles enter the US market with a "trust me, bro" approach to safety. And if you don't think automobile manufacturers are doing everything they can to cut corners on those self-certification tests, then I have a Ford Pinto to sell you. Incidentally, the Pinto scandal was likely the inspiration for the narrator's job in Fight Club.
Take the number of vehicles in the field, A, multiply it by the probable rate of failure, B, then multiply the result by the average out-of-court settlement, C. A times B times C equals X. If X is less than the cost of a recall, we don't do one.
I also think that the already shocking pedestrian fatality
Business,
statistics
baby.
out of the US are understating the dangers, because the US has managed to significantly reduce their pedestrian fatalities by just having fewer pedestrians. Can't have pedestrian deaths if there's no pedestrians. Checkmate, Europe.
Yo, that's the fact. That's a fact. Like, no jaywalking. There's not a lot of places to cross on the road. You got to get to a specific positioning near the street lights. There's not like really bike lanes in specific parts or this or that. There's ways to probably cut it off so that you can limit the amount of pedestrians using the road. At the same time as the vehicle, like when it's busy, 100%. I was never really thinking about that before. Okay. I was never really thinking about that before.
Can't have pedestrian deaths if there's no pedestrians. Checkmate, Europe. Outside of a small number of urban cores, the number of people who walk in American cities is vanishingly small, and this is hiding how bad the situation has become. But people actually walk in Europe, so if these trucks become common here, it will be a bloodbath, and for no good reason. So you might be wondering, who benefits from this trade deal and why is the EU considering it at all? Well, first are the American motor vehicle companies who would love to sell their high-margin vehicles in Europe. The only reason why these vehicles became popular in the US in the first place is because automobile manufacturers realized they could bypass regulations by selling work vehicles as consumer vehicles. Then they funneled those profits into marketing to drive demand for these impractical vehicles. Americans didn't love trucks naturally, they were advertised into it.
Facts.
If you want to learn more, the history of this is well documented in the book High and Mighty, written by a Detroit automobile journalist who was writing about the car industry when all of this happened. American automakers would love to do the same thing in Europe, if only they could eliminate those pesky safety regulations. But the real push for this trade deal comes from within the EU itself, mostly from German automobile manufacturers. In April, the US government applied an arbitrary 25% tariff to all cars imported from the European Union, which affected any European automobile manufacturer who relied heavily on the US market. In a recent press release, Volkswagen said that US tariffs would cost the company up to 5 billion euros this year, and that tariffs have reduced their year-over-year profit by 58%.
Whoa.
So they are desperate to do literally anything
Whoa, that's a lot. 50%.
they can to have those tariffs reduced. EU safety standards for automobiles are significantly higher than they are in the US, both in terms of what is tested, but also who does the testing. US automotive safety testing focuses primarily on occupant safety in typical crash scenarios. One of the only tests that is
Hey, did I like hit something? Oh, wait, hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, I definitely hit something because I'm like, wait a minute. Now, we was already here. How does that be happening? Did you like literally see me click right here, guys? Like, how does that be happening, bro? That is like really weird. That's really weird. I'm being honest. Right here.
happened.
Like, I mean,
American automakers would love to do the same thing in Europe, if only they could eliminate those pesky safety regulations. But the real push for this trade deal comes from within the EU itself, mostly from German automobile manufacturers. In April, the US government applied an arbitrary 25% tariff to all cars imported from the European Union, which affected any European automobile manufacturer who relied heavily on the US market. In a recent press release, Volkswagen said that US tariffs would cost the company up to 5 billion euros this year, and that tariffs have reduced their year-over-year profit by 58%. So they are desperate to do literally anything they can to have those tariffs reduced, even if it means risking the lives of millions of Europeans. Plus, I'm sure they are salivating at the idea of importing their high-margin foreign brands into the EU while bypassing safety and emissions regulations.
But I also thought, like, since, some Americans, especially in today's time that we are living in, with all this drama going on, a lot of Americans have been transitioning out abroad to different countries. So I felt like that was another reason for the push, Let's get it out there because we got Americans out there as well. We definitely, maybe even if it's a small percentage, we'll still make some revenue, but what's the chances? Everyone might like it. This is how they was probably thinking. It was probably like, hey, we got Americans out there. But yet again, this is how it is for a lot of franchises and businesses within the United States, especially when it is a United States owned business. They tend to really accommodate to the Americans and what they want, because they only know how they like things, how they truly want it, how they want the standard vehicle and all big and bulky, country looking. Nobody want that, bro. So they're just going off of what they know that Americans like. You can't keep those same type of traditional policies within other countries. Doesn't matter if it's the way you're constructing a vehicle, a home, or if you're going down to customer service or something within a business. You cannot keep it the same and you need to change it. So you got these big doofy looking vehicles out here in the United States. Big doofy looking vehicles out here in the United States. Big for no reason, as a matter of fact. That's probably why the ambulance and and the fire police and I said the fire police, the fire station. This is probably why the firefighters, the police officers, the ambulance can't make it through to get to their emergency, because you got these big doofy vehicles in the way. It's not the cause. It's not our fault. It's yours. You got that big truck. Move it out the way. It's taking up 2 lanes anyway. Like, and it's hot in this room. It's literally 100 degrees outside. And it just hit like 7:30 p.m. It's not even June yet. But yeah, let's get back to the video, man. So please don't mind me if I'm a little moist up top. Moist? Moist was crazy. Yeah, moist was crazy.
Bypassing safety and emissions regulations.
Like, they're not really thinking for the Europeans and nobody, or specifically in the UK. They don't care. You know how I get in the US. They just trying to attend to the Americans, which is annoying, bro. You're not going to succeed that way. Sooner or later, watch. Maybe in Europe, they're going to have their own trucks. They do got their own trucks. That might take over, Or just might be lighter, but not so big and doofy. They might figure out a way to bypass all this other stuff the US be doing, to get the truck how they want it, how they like it. I don't know.
Foreign brands into the EU while bypassing safety and emissions regulations. As part of these negotiations, the EU was able to get the Trump administration to reduce the tariff rate from 25% to 15%, at least for now. Of course, I don't know why anybody would trust any trade deals out of the US these days. The other week, Trump arbitrarily increased tariffs on all products from Canada by 10%, simply because the Ontario government aired a commercial on right-wing news channels that was literally just a segment of a Ronald Reagan speech about tariffs. It's not even supposed to be legal for a U.S. president to arbitrarily impose tariffs like this, but it's very clear that the American government is no longer following their own laws anyway, so none of that matters anymore. So remind me again why Europe should be willing to cripple our vehicle safety regulations for a country which has proven to be lawless, arbitrary, and vindictive? And it's not like pickup trucks are fundamentally illegal in Europe or something. They just need to pass EU safety testing, which is completely reasonable. If you think that signing a deal like this with the US would be disastrous for Europe, I'll put a link to a site where you can find and contact your member of European Parliament, as well as links to some of the advocacy groups who are fighting this proposed trade deal. And if you'd like to learn more about American light trucks, I have a previous video about how they became popular and the damage they're causing in North America. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support this channel and the work I do, consider...
Hey, original video link will be down below in the description. I say, Europe should just make their own trucks, honestly. Have your own style, your own way, because you truly know what the people want, You truly know what the people want and how they want the standard vehicle, the standard truck. All these big doofy, everybody says this about the United States. Everything is just bigger and better, but it's really not. The bigger, the worse. The bigger, the more issues. Serious, that should be the slogan. The bigger, the more issues, for real, for real. It don't matter if it's a vehicle, if it's a home. It's just how it happens in the U.S., bro. If it's bigger, it's more issues. It's worse, man. Doesn't mean it's always good. They be having these big behind pickup trucks taking up 2 lanes. I can't get my mind off of that. 2 lanes, and you barely got a trunk, and you in a pickup truck? You might as well drive the car to the lake and drive it to the lake or something. It's so useless. So useless. I mean, my truck is probably bigger. I'm in a Honda. I'm just a sedan. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications on, share your honest thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Yes. Let me know as well, what do you think the future plans will be in Europe? Do you guys think they will continue this trade deal with the U.S. or just do things on their own, have their own deal, invest in themselves, each country investing in themselves and just growing that way, should I say, because it's not like if you bring that American vehicle out there, it's going to do great. It's not like business going to be booming and percentage going to be up. That's not how it works because they looking at our stuff like, why is this here? You know what I'm saying? But meanwhile, we got cars coming from Europe, Japan, Canada. Should I keep going? We got Japanese cars. We got so many cars. I'm trying to think of another one. We got German engineering cars. We got all these type of cars that come from other countries, and we like the way they are. We like how they are, how they come standard, how they come equipped, what they look like, and everything. So why can't we do the same for our vehicles? It's always some BS. Please feel free to follow the Twitch and subscribe to all my other YouTube channels down below in the description. But share your honest thoughts and opinions in the comment section about this, man. I don't think it's going to last for too long. Especially how the roads be out there in Europe, within like the countries of Europe. You know how the roads be narrow and all that? It's like driving down a one-way road. Nobody want to deal with that. Nobody want to deal with that. Man, stay safe, and I hope to catch you all in the next reaction video.